Okay, guys, here I am again. I'm going to do a lecture on love today. I'm actually breaking it into two parts. This one will be a little bit shorter, and then I'll have another section that'll finish it up. Okay, I love this quote from Osho because it applies to me. It says, when you love a person, all fear disappears, and when you are afraid, all love disappears. I love Osho. So one of the things I was going to talk about today is this. The similarity rule when it comes to attraction and love and how we relate and have these two people that kind of look like each other, or is it complementarity that opposites attract? That, we look at people who are different and how they come together. And so that's where I usually start my stuff on especially love and mating and how we get together as couples, is that birds of a feather flock together, that opposites attract right here. And so been this, back and forth in the research over the years and psychology about which one is. And most evidence supports similarity. And so I have 5 theories, but really they're kind of all the same theory because they're all similarity. And so I have these 5 theories. I'm going to move through each one of them and hopefully I'll do a good job. Number one, we've already talked about reinforcement affect theory. That goes back to Don Byrne and the bogus stranger paradigm. Remember, he said or found that if you thought a person was going to be similar to you, you looked forward to meeting and working with them. And so agreement becomes like a reward. If I say something like, I like this movie, and you like it too, it kind of stimulates, this positive, reward from classical conditioning. It reinforces positive feelings. And I'm sure, dopamine gets released and all kinds of we strive for consistency. That's the reward because we get the agreement. But when we get inconsistency, sorry about this picture, it's kind of like a punishment. It's like, I don't like that. And we've talked about dissonance theory. So I have this little silly thing with the sheep on here because I'm a black sheep. And it's like the flock doesn't like inconsistency. They like consistency. And they say things like, if you're different and don't follow us, bad things will happen to you. If you were in my religion class, I would talk about Jonathan and how he relates to the flock and how he has to follow his own path. So hopefully that first one makes sense. We've already done it. The second one is basically the first one, but it came from Fritz Heider. Let's say, well, there's a man and a woman and that they like each other. Okay, so we'll presume they like each other because they're in a relationship. Now, what they should do when it comes to other people, places, and things is they should like the same thing. Think about when you're first dating somebody. It's like, do you like this? Yeah, I like Chinese food. Yeah, I like it too. So, do you like to go, hiking? Yes, I do too. But if you like the same things, it bolsters the relationship. I don't know if you can see this little thing where I made it go bigger. Okay, but if you start to disagree, then that goes down a little bit down here. If you can see this plus sign is going down because it's like, no, I don't want to go hiking, but I like to hike. I don't want to play video games, but I like to play video games. And so you start to fight. That's what I call fighting. And it starts to compromise the original relationship down here. Now, if you disagree on the same thing, that's great. Oh, I don't like, this politician, neither do I. Oh, okay. Well, that actually bolsters the relationship. So I like this because you don't have to agree on all people, places, and things, but you better have a big. And that's why I do believe from Christian theology about equally yoked. If you have two people, you should have a lot of overlap here, right? But if I can get this off of here, you don't want to date yourself either, where it's all overlap. You agree on everything. Maybe you do. But equally yoked means the oxen should be paired so they pull at the same strength. If you meet somebody and you have nothing in common, this is Tim's problem. I end up dating girls and then I just pick them based on, oh, they're cute and they like me. But then later on, we have nothing in common. We're not equally yoked, so we're not built for the long run. Theory number 3, social comparison theory. We've already done the beehive theory a million times. When you go to compare your attitudes with other people, who do you compare them with? Similar others, similar bees. I fly to hives that have similar bees. Why? Because they're like me. I value their opinion. If I'm a Republican, I don't fly to the Democratic hive. You know what I mean? It's like vice versa. So if you're a Trumper, you're not going to fly to the Bernie Sanders hive. About this, when you go to pick relationships, I'm bad about this too. I should pick, the same kind of bee as me, and this says consensual validation. Agreements is evidence of being right. If I say I like this movie and you do too, then not only do we get along, but hey, I kind of right, right? And so this is the same relationship. So when you start to disagree a lot, you start to try to convince the other person that they're wrong. Okay, theory number 4, we'll see how I'm doing, but we've already done this theory too. My beliefs about myself influence the people I select because they have the same beliefs about Tim that I have. Well, that's great because then they confirm over here. Let me just pick a different color pen. They confirm what I already believed about myself, right? But if I have a good self-esteem, then that's all hunky-dory. Let me get this off of here if I can erase this. And so, but if I have a bad self-esteem, then maybe I go, and you can't see it down here, pick abusive people. So based on your belief about yourself, you'll pick good or bad people that will confirm the belief. This is what happens with men or women that are in abusive relationships. You try to get them out of the relationship, but until they change from here, oops, let me get my pen, to here, this is like Tim, then you're just going to keep picking the same kind of person that will influence and treat you in ways that confirm the beliefs you have about yourself. This is my least favorite thing I ever heard, but my friend Robert told it to me one time. Tim, you train people how to treat you. It's like, oh my God. Because if I feel like this about myself, I'm training them to treat me like that, to help whip up on Tim instead of help bolster Tim up. Theory, and then we're done with this little part of the lecture, is the matching hypothesis. This came from Ellen Burchard in the 1970s, and she says we pick mates that kind of possess similar characteristics that we do. They look alike. Look at the noses and eyes and even features right here on these people and their teeth. It's like so similar. It's crazy. And so what she would find in her research is that boyfriends and girlfriends are often mistaken for brothers and sisters. Okay, so here's a silly thing about matching right here, how people match their pets, this one or this one. I could bring in a bunch of other ones. When I walk around my apartment complex, I'm always amazed at how people match their pets. So I hope those 5 made sense. So if you have any questions, again, definitely contact me about those 5 theories about similarity. Okay, the next section is on attachment theory. Attachment theory is one of my favorite theories to talk about. It has all to do with how we form relationships with other people. The idea it starts off with is the mother-child bond. This is your first relationship. I know maybe it could be father-child, grandmother-child. I'll talk about that in 2 seconds. But he says the first relationship you have is the mother-child bond. Researchers, I should say. Konrad Lorenz, he did have these geese, and usually they would attach upon their mother, imprint upon their mother. But one of the sets, like their mama died before they hatched, and when they hatched, the first thing they saw was him, and so they thought he was the mother and just imprinted upon him, kind of like Sid in Ice Age. Right? He's not a dinosaur. But most of us imprint on a human, you know what I mean? That are, and so this bond right here is setting the stage for our future bonds. It's the template. It's our first relationship. If this is good, then this is going to be good. Not perfect, but pretty good. If this is bad over here, then maybe bad things. Not bad things, but you'll have problems bonding with other people. This is why I like Now, Sigmund Freud talked about cupboard theory. A cupboard or a pantry usually contains food, and he says your mom is like a pantry. And so if you go to the pantry and it's always full, you'll feel good and safe. You grow up feeling safe, and so you'll be normal. I think that's, well, part of the equation, kind of bullshit. If you just feed a kid, he'll be okay. Yeah, but if you don't love the kid, so I'm more about the mother being about nurturance and lovey-doveyness, and so this lovey-doveyness is the cupboard that I'm going to talk about and contrast it with Freud's cupboard that just involves food. Now, Erik Erikson also talks about something. I'm not going to ask you about Freud's cupboard on the test or this, but he says the first thing you learn in this world is a basic trust versus mistrust. That does go along with the cupboard. Think about a pound dog. It gets this broken early on. That's why when people have, problems growing up in dysfunctional households and then other people go, oh, just get over it. It's like, yeah, that's like getting a dog from the pound and then 2 seconds later go, get over it. It's not going to get over it. It's cooked into its DNA in some ways. Harry Harlow studied this bonding patterns with rhesus macaques, which are these baby monkeys, and he would raise them with these fake, or what he called surrogate mothers. And he had these fake cupboards, and he wanted to see the impact that these fake cupboards would have on the infants. Next slide, you can see here's Freud's cupboard over here. And here's Tim's cupboard, this nice and soft and lovey-dovey, okay, if that's like a little hard. Okay, but anyway, you can see the infant does have to pick the milk. But it really prefers this one over here. And so this idea that these researchers, Harry Harlow and his associates found, they called this contact comfort, that the infants actually preferred a choice over food. And this was like really surprising to them. So in this next slide, I'm going to show the video where they have this choice.
Let me show you a monkey raised on a nursing wire mother. Now here are 106's two mothers. As you can see, it was weaned on a wire mother. Here's baby 106. Watch. He's going to the wire mother. He's got to eat to live.
Oh, he's going back.
He's back on the cloth mother, and he'll stay on the cloth mother. Actually, this baby spends from 17 to 18 hours a day on the cloth mother and less than 1 hour a day on the wire mother. We had predicted that the variable of contact comfort would be a variable of measurable importance, but we were unprepared to find that it completely overwhelmed and overshadowed all other variables, including those of nursing.
Okay, here I am back again. The movie is really stressing this importance that I keep stressing, that it's not just about food. So, in adulthood, what do? They reintroduce these monkeys back into a troop of normal monkeys. So they've been raised with a fake monkey until they become an adult. Now you go around normal monkeys. I don't want to show the video. It makes me so mad. But they develop really poor social skills. They run over into the corner and hide, and they shiver and like do all this stupid stuff. I can't stand it. The other thing is they become abusive mothers. If their babies get around them, they'll beat their own babies, and so they have no interest in becoming. Last thing I usually say is talking about preemies. This is one of my favorite lines of research to talk about. I don't know if you know about the NICU unit. Get it back on this one. In the NICU unit, it's where the prematurely born babies are, and they have everything. That's Freud's cupboard. They have respirators, they're on IVs, they're in a contained, protected environment. And one thing they started noticing scientifically that the babies were dying left and right. The mortality rates were very high. And so on some of the units, especially back, I think it was about the 1970s, this is pretty popular now, but some of the nurses would just go around and cuddle the babies, which would be like Tim. That's Tim's cupboard, which is based on this. So Freud's is food, right? You got all the food and everything and respirators. Tim's is more like this. And so what they started to find is on the floors that they did this, that the mortality rates dropped by as much as 50%. That's crazy. And so now they do this as common practice. And so they developed this thing called kangaroo care. And when newborn infants are born, this is what I've heard anyway, and I've read about it, is they'll take that newborn infant and place it right on the mother's naked chest, naked to naked contact over and over and over, not for food, but for this sense of contact comfort that promotes the health and well-being of the baby. Okay, so now the last section, which has to do with real babies, or we shouldn't say real babies, but humans. We'll talk about this paradigm or setup. Remember the bogus stranger paradigm or setup we talked about earlier. Now, in this setup, she discovers 3 styles, and I'm fixing to show the setup on the next slide. Now, here it is, the setup. The mother and the child show up. The child is right down here, and the child is 18 months old. Okay, so this 18-month-old baby, it's right in that critical period I've been talking about the whole morning. This morning for me anyway. Okay, so they bring a stranger in. How do you react to strangers? Strange situation. Oh, yeah, I forgot there's a window over here. You can see what's going on. The other thing is like the mother will sneak out. Can you do okay with the stranger there? Now the mother comes back, I think. Now, while you're not watching, I think both of them sneak out. How do you do alone? Oh my God, I'm all alone. Do you just go over in the corner and play? Now the mother comes back. Are you okay when she comes back? She looks at all kinds of stuff, observing from this window over here. The 2 things I believe she's looking at, this is Tim's opinion. Stranger anxiety. Do you freak out on strangers or not? Whether it's kids or dogs, I'll just use dogs as an example because I'm right by the dog park. Whenever I get around people's dogs, they either like really, get really mean, like Oscar, like will bite my hand off. It's funny his name is Oscar. But, other dogs, are not like that. They don't have any fear of strangers. Kids are the same way. So here I have this little dog over here. This isn't Oscar, but this is how Oscar acts towards Tim. Now, separation anxiety is what I dealt with more. It's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Don't leave me alone. I don't want to go all Pink Floyd right now, but I will. And so some dogs are like this, please don't leave me alone. And you just can't get them away from you. My dog is more like this. He has separation anxiety. And so people that are normal don't have a lot of these anxieties because why? The mother-child bond was okay. That's why I'm a big proponent of this theory. But people like me or other people, excuse me, have, problems with this because either they get too much stranger anxiety, it's like people are bad, I don't trust anybody, or they get too much separation anxiety, which is like, I'm going to just get me somebody and just hold on forever. And so either way is not the best way. Okay, so based on our observations, you can kind of see one of the infants, has a lot of fear of being alone, and another one has a lot of fear of strangers, and a third group basically doesn't have any fears. So don't write these 3 down. They'll be on the next slide. But the reason I show this slide is one day I was given a lecture and I looked out into the audience and a mother was bawling her head off. And it's like, oh no, I made a mama cry. And I started to think about it this way, that if you have a group of puppies, some are already naturally born or avoidant. They're just like that. Some people might have already been born like me, clingy, and some people might just been born, kind of well balanced, and that's called temperament. So it's not all the cupboard or the mother. Sometimes it's the child or the way that the child was born and his, emotional or her emotional state. want you to write down. Okay, her 3 styles. Number 1, secure. Secure means you were secure with your mother, and so when you grow up, you have nice, secure, trusting relationships. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but if you look at it this way, you don't have that big fear of strangers or that nagging, fear of being left alone. Now, the second and third styles, by definition, are insecure, and I'm going to go into detail about these 3 styles on the next lecture. But this one right here is basically the one that's too clingy. And so that's where you had trust issues, because both of these have trust issues. That's why I showed the cupboard and Erik Erikson stuff. These people don't have a trust issue, but these people do. And how do I solve it? I'm going to make everybody love me. I'm going to chase after people. And how do the avoidant solve it? I don't trust people. I have a fear of strangers and being close. Fuck everybody. FTW means fuck the world. And so that's like my brother. He's FTW, where I get more clingy, but both are based in the trust issues we had in our cupboard growing up. This is why I'm a big proponent of talking about the cupboard. And so next time's lecture, we'll go into a lot more detail about these 3 styles that she discovered. I hope that my lecture was good today. If you have any questions, definitely give me a call or an email. I'll see you next time.